for additional questions, and then we'll also do the scholarship drawing that Jake talked about. So if anyone has any questions during the presentation, please feel free to raise your hand and interrupt me. Otherwise, we will stop a few times to answer some questions. So let's go ahead and jump in here. We got a lot to cover.
Hold on.
There we go. Just had to turn it off and on. Okay, so first section here is finding scholarships. So my first piece of advice is to look beyond the web. A lot of students will get into that habit of just going on to those larger scholarship search engines that you can find online. And that is a good option as far as kind of the last option that you would have. The slide up here kind of gives you a list of how to prioritize your time when it comes to applying for scholarships. So I would say always you want to start with Oregon Tech specific scholarships because these are going to have less competition than you're going to find with more of those national type scholarships. And then right behind that would be OSAC, which is the Office of Student Access and Completion, and then also local scholarships. Local scholarships, just like Oregon Tech scholarships, are going to have a lot less competition than you're going to find with the more national scholarships, where there could be thousands of students applying for the same award as you. And then at the bottom of that list, like I talked about, would be those web searches that you can do for those more national scholarships where there's going to be a lot more competition. So if you have the time, you want to hit all these different areas, but if you don't have limitless time to be applying for scholarships, this kind of gives you a list of how to prioritize your time. Okay. And I want to highlight a few different scholarship funds, and the first on this list is the Oregon Tech Foundation. So the Oregon Tech Foundation administers well over 200 different scholarship funds. So lots of different opportunities for students at Oregon Tech. And the parts of the application that you want to be aware of is there's going to be at least 2 main essay questions that you have to answer as part of this application. There's also an activities chart that you will fill out, and then GPA and financial need will factor into some of our scholarship funds. And we'll talk about this more in detail later. But those are the general areas that we're going to consider when we're awarding our scholarships. The application is open right now. It opened earlier this week, so you can get started. And the final deadline is going to be March 3rd at 5 p.m. So you still got lots of time, but get started early. Give yourself plenty of time to complete that application. And you want to review on the webpage there, the OTF Scholars webpage. There's some application facts and tips that are posted on our website that'll give you some good basic information about the scholarship application. And we will award almost $500,000 in scholarships during this process that's open this winter. So lots of opportunities for you guys. There's also going to be a summer process that will open up in early July. So any students that didn't receive a scholarship or their scholarship was $1,500 or less will have a second opportunity this summer to begin applying for scholarships again. And the foundation will disperse all together between both processes and renewing scholarships. We will disperse over $1 million in scholarships this year, which we're pretty proud of as a smaller school that we have that much scholarship funding. So kind of something that we like to let be known because we're pretty proud of it. And then another note is financial need is determined by your FAFSA information. So you do need to file a FAFSA if you're going to apply for any need-based scholarships. Okay, so another Oregon Tech fund that I want to talk to you guys about would be Leadership and Diversity. Leadership and Diversity is a little bit different than the foundation. You can apply through the same scholarship application, but the requirements for this are going to be a little bit different. The selection committee is going to consider, as they choose these students, how students hope to improve their leadership skills while at Oregon Tech, how students will make a difference and contribute to Oregon Tech being a place where all students feel a sense of belonging.
Sorry.
That's okay. So there's going to be 2 essay questions, 2 prompts that are geared towards those topics that you would have to answer as part of this application. We will also consider whether a student has first-generation status and if they have financial need. You also can have no more than 90 Oregon Tech credits. So once you're over 90 credits at Oregon Tech, unfortunately, you can no longer apply for this scholarship, but it is renewable for up to 4 years total once you receive it. It has a March 3rd deadline, just like the Oregon Tech Foundation. And once again, you apply through the same scholarship application that you do for the OTF scholarship. So it's nice because you can hit all these different scholarships with one application. You don't have to be filling out multiple applications. And then another place that you can look as far as Oregon Tech is considered would be the Oregon Tech scholarship page. We're going to list all of our institutional scholarships on this page, but we're also going to post any outside scholarships that we've been contacted about and give you guys information about how you apply for those. You can also check with your academic departments. So the different departments on campus will sometimes be aware of scholarships that even the financial aid office doesn't know about. So make sure you check in with your counselor, with your academic advisor, and ask them if they know of any scholarships specifically for your program. And then any athletes that are out there listening online or here in person, you also have some opportunities for scholarships. Obviously, your coach would be your first resource. But we also have some Oregon Tech Foundation scholarships that are specifically for athletes. And you could apply for those through the same application through the Oregon Tech Foundation. Okay, so this is not an Oregon Tech fund, but one that I really like to highlight because it's such a great opportunity for students in the state of Oregon, would be OSAC, which is the Office of Student Access and Completion. And this is for students that are residents of the state of Oregon. And I think this is an amazing fund because a lot of states don't have options like this, where there's hundreds of scholarships for Oregon students all in one place. And you can use one application to apply for all the different funds that you're eligible for. So if you're an Oregon resident, you definitely want to have this on the list of scholarships that you're applying for. And some things that they're going to ask you for would be your transcripts. They're going to ask you to fill out an activities chart. And the nice thing about the activities chart for this is it's very similar to the one that you're already going to be completing for the Oregon Tech Foundation. So it's less work because you can use some of that same information that you're already submitting for the foundation and use that to apply for OSAC. And they're going to have you write 4 personal statements as part of that application as well. They also have a link on their website for scholarship help. So if you're struggling with this application at all, there's lots of great information on their website. And it is open right now for you to begin applying. The early bird deadline is going to be February 18th, and then the final deadline is going to be March 3rd at 5 p.m. So same as our scholarships. Early March is kind of a theme that you're going to see with a lot of scholarships. So winter break is a great time for you guys to start working on these applications. And then this next fund here is not exactly a scholarship, but I feel like it's really good information to get out to students. And this is the OSAC Oregon Student Child Care Grant. And this is a grant for students that have a child or legal dependent age 12 and under. And you must be a citizen or eligible non-citizen of the United States. This helps you pay for childcare while you attend school. And we have quite a few students that have received this fund over the years, but I don't feel like everybody's aware of it. So if you have a dependent at home that you need to provide childcare for, or if you have friends in your classes, help spread the word about this fund. Because like I said, I don't feel like everybody knows about it. And it's a really huge help for those of you that are caring for children while you're attending school. And you go to OregonStudentAid.gov to apply for this. And the 2025-26 application is scheduled to open in January. So here pretty soon you can begin applying for this fund. Okay. And then next on our list would be the Ford Scholarship Programs. And Ford is a fund, once again, for Oregon residents. Most of these on this list here are for new students. So if we have any new students in the audience or anyone listening online, there's lots of great opportunities for you here. We'll talk in a minute a little bit more about the ones that are specific to current students. But you must file a FAFSA or an ORSA if you're an undocumented student. The application opens in November, so it's already open for you guys. And then it's going to have a March 3rd deadline as well at 5 p.m. And you can see the website down there at the bottom where you can get some more information on this. But I did want to highlight one of the Ford scholarships in particular, which is the Ford Opportunity Grant, because this one is open to current students. And for the Ford Opportunity, you must be a parent of any age or an adult learner over the age of 25 seeking an associate or bachelor's degree. You have to be a resident of Oregon or Siskiyou County, California. That's one exception to the Oregon rule. And you have to have at least 1 year remaining in your degree program. And so this award is calculated based on your cost of attendance minus other grants and scholarships, and they're going to cover 90% of your unmet need. So this is a huge opportunity for students. We've had quite a few Ford Scholars over the years. So if you're a current student and you meet this criteria, I would really encourage you to apply for this because it's going to really help you not have to go into debt for your degree here at Oregon Tech. And like I said, it covers 90% of unmet need. And then there's also the Oregon Community Foundation. The vast majority of OCF scholarships are administered through OSAC. So you can apply just through that same website that we talked about earlier for OSAC scholarships, but they do have some funds that you can apply for through their website. So you can see OregonCF.org, and they'll list the scholarships that are available directly through them. Some of them are pretty specific, but I still think it's a good idea to point this out to students because a lot of them are for Oregon residents or Siskiyou County. So if take a few minutes, go check out their website, see if you meet the criteria for any of their specific scholarships. And then just a few more notes on where to look for scholarships. Another great resource are family and friends. A family member or a friend may know about community scholarships that are available to you. If you ask around, you may be surprised at the opportunities that are out there. Even if you've graduated high school already, your high school is also a great resource. They may know about scholarships that are for students from specific areas, and so they can point you in the right direction. You can also talk to different organizations like Lions, Masons, Rotary. Those are all great options and they often will offer scholarships. So just start asking around to see what opportunities are available to you. Many employers, even McDonald's, will offer scholarships. So if you're a student that's currently employed, make sure you talk to your employer and see if they offer any scholarships for employees at your work. It doesn't hurt to ask, right? And local scholarships will often have much less competition in general than nationwide scholarships that you find. So the more local you can focus, the better for you guys. Okay, so we're going to pause here for just a second. If anyone has not entered the scholarship raffle, this is going to be the last call for that. So anyone online or here in person, make sure you get that taken care of. Yeah. Yes, yep, as long as you took care of that when you came in with the QR code, then you're all set. Right, Jake, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Any questions on what we've covered so far? Yeah.
Tech Foundation Scholarship, was it GPA? Do you put your current GPA as like a college student or like high school?
Gotcha, that's a good question. So the question was about for the Oregon Tech Foundation scholarship application, if you put in your college GPA or if you put in your high school GPA. And we'll have a slide in a little bit that'll cover that in a little bit more detail. But basically, once you have at least 12 Oregon Tech credits, we're going to use your Oregon Tech GPA as what's going to drive what scholarships that you're eligible for. But if you're a brand new student and you don't have 12 credits yet that have been, so basically at the end of fall term, if you've been a full-time student, that Oregon Tech GPA is going to trump anything else that you came in with. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I came from another college as a transfer, and I did a term at another college and have a GPA from there. But this term, this fall term, I've only taken 6 credits.
Okay.
Will I still receive the GPA for this term, or should I use the term prior?
Yeah. So the question was about as a transfer student and not attending full-time for fall term. So if you don't have those 12 credits yet, we'll use your transfer GPA. Yeah. So it basically goes high school at the bottom, if you don't have transfer, at least 36 transfer credits, we would use your high school GPA, and then comes transfer, and then we want to use your Oregon Tech GPA once you've had at least one full-time term. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, so let's keep moving here. So the next section that we're going to talk about is going to be the actual application. If my clicker will work. There we go. Okay, so we're going to talk about the actual application that you're going to fill out as far as scholarships are concerned. So we're going to cover essays, the activities chart, and reference letters are the three areas that we're going to highlight tonight. Okay, so as far as getting started, you want to apply early, you want to apply often. So obviously, the more applications you put out there, the better your chances are going to be to receive a scholarship. If you apply for just one scholarship, you put all your eggs in that one basket and you don't receive it. Obviously it would be better if you had more chances of receiving a scholarship. But I would also caution you that don't overwhelm yourself and apply for so many scholarships that you're submitting subpar work to like 30 different scholarships, but none of the applications are true quality applications. Make sure that you only apply for as many scholarships as you can submit a quality application. And scholarship in general, scholarship season is typically November through April. So you're going to see most scholarship applications open and close sometime during that time frame. If you go past the early spring, you're really not going to find much as far as scholarships are concerned. There might be a few outliers on either side, but your options are going to be really limited. So winter break is a great time to get started with applying for scholarships. And that way you're not having to balance so much of your schoolwork with applying for scholarships. So I would encourage you to at least get started this winter break on your scholarship applications and then maybe finish them up as we get into the early spring. And then you want to keep copies of completed applications, and we'll talk about this more later, but there are ways to responsibly recycle your scholarship application so you're not reinventing the wheel every time. Maybe you have some essays that you could recycle. Obviously, your activities chart needs to be updated often, but you don't have to rewrite your entire activities chart every time you apply for a scholarship. So keep copies of anything that you submit. Okay. So each application, each scholarship obviously is going to be different, but these are some items that they might require from you. You're going to need your FAFSA information if you apply for any need-based scholarships. If you're applying for Oregon Tech scholarships, all you have to do is list us on your FAFSA and we'll already have that information, but you might have to send that information to any outside scholarships. You might have to provide transcripts if it's a scholarship outside of Oregon Tech, test scores, essays or personal statements, activities chart or resume, a letter of recommendation. For some really high profile or high dollar amount scholarships like Ford, you might have to actually go in for an interview and sit with a committee to talk about your qualifications for the scholarship. And then if it's a really specialized scholarship, you might have to submit a portfolio for examples of work in a field of study. So every scholarship application is going to be a little bit different. So make sure that you read the instructions really carefully so you're providing them with everything that they need from you. Okay, so the first area of the application that I wanted to talk to you guys about would be the essays. And I can't stress this enough. Essays are super important. There's going to be lots of points that generally come from the essays. So if you're going to spend a lot of time on any part of your scholarship application, it really needs to be the essays. Getting started is often the hardest part. So break down the task into smaller pieces. A great way to do this is to create an outline before you even begin to write your essay. A complete outline is the key to writing an organized, clear, effective essay. It doesn't have to be super formal necessarily. It just needs to be something where you list everything that you want to say in your essay. It's just really important to have one in general. And then the other thing is every essay needs an intro with your thesis statement. It needs a body to support that thesis, and it needs a conclusion to wrap it all up. And so even 500-word essays are going to need this basic structure. And I know this sounds really simplistic, we probably all know this, but I do read a lot of essays as far as scholarship applications where they don't have this. And it makes it really hard for your reader to follow what you're saying when they're on their 30th application that they're reading, and they have to figure out what you're trying to tell them exactly. If you have this basic structure, it's gonna make it a lot easier for your reader to be able to follow exactly what you're trying to say. And then also give yourself permission to write badly. And what I mean by that is your first draft is not going to be perfect, and it doesn't need to be perfect. Just get something down on paper, just start writing, and then you can go back later and you can tweak that and you can fine tune it. But if you try to make that first draft perfect, you're gonna probably run into some writer's block. So my biggest piece of advice with that is just start writing and then go back and you can revise it later. And a little note here about anecdotes. Anecdotes, a brief story used to make a larger point. So anecdotes help you share telling details. It's the difference between sharing an experience with someone and simply supplying them with information. So an example of this would be, don't just tell your reader that you've always wanted to be a nurse. Explain to the reader how you were inspired by an amazing nurse who cared for your mom while she was battling cancer. That would be an example. Another would be, don't just tell your reader that a high school teacher had a huge influence on you. Explain how that teacher made you believe in yourself when no one else did. So effective anecdotes are brief, they're descriptive, and they're relevant to what you're trying to say in your essay. And so anecdotes are specific slices of personal experience that help the reader get a mental picture of you and your world. And they make the essay more memorable and more fun to read. Just like I mentioned earlier, if someone's on their 30th scholarship application that they're reading, maybe they've read 50 scholarship applications. You want to make that personal connection with your reader, and anecdotes are a great way to do that. And you want to be sure when you use anecdotes that you transition from the anecdote back to the main idea. This experience led me to understand or realize. This is just one example of how. So you share that anecdote and then you transition back to the idea, the point that you were trying to make. And another note on anecdotes is that it's helpful information when you're trying to avoid, and we'll talk about this more here in a few minutes, but AI usage, AI to write your scholarship essays is becoming a really huge deal right now in scholarships. And like I said, we'll have a whole slide on this later, but you can avoid your reader thinking that you used AI to write your essay. If you use anecdotes and you use personal stories, it's going to make more of that connection with them. And so you want to help the reader see something in their head when they read. You don't want to just tell them, you want to show them. So I can't stress this enough. Make sure that you give examples, you use anecdotes, you make that connection with your reader. Okay, and then as far as essays, once again, proofread, proofread, proofread. I can't say this enough either. You want to proofread for word count, first of all. If you type your scholarship essays in Word and then you go to paste it in the Oregon Tech Foundation scholarship application and it's over 500 words, it's going to cut you off mid-sentence. So make sure that you don't allow the application to cut you off, that you stay within the word count so that you don't lose points with your readers. You want to check obviously for spelling and grammar. Use paragraphs. I see so many scholarship applications that are submitted with just one big block of words. There's no paragraphs each time they transition to a new point or a new idea. Makes it a lot harder for your reader to understand what you're trying to say if you don't use paragraphs. Another note would be watch the use of jargon. This seems to be a problem here on our campus, probably more than a lot of places because the types of degrees that we offer. We have engineering, we have a lot of technical degrees, medical type degrees. So remember that your reader may not be specialized in your area that you're studying. So I don't know a lot about engineering. So if you start using super technical terms from your engineering classes and don't explain to me what that means, you're going to lose me. So just remember who your reader is, that they may not understand some of the technical jargon that you guys are so used to using in your classes, but may not translate well in a scholarship application. You also want to ask for help. have at least one other set of eyes look over your scholarship application, your essays in particular, and make sure that they're helping you catch any errors or mistakes that you have made. And then read out loud to yourself, maybe print off that essay that you wrote and have it in front of you. Anything that you can do to catch errors, that's an easier way for some people to do that rather than looking at it on a screen. You want to make sure that you don't lose out on valuable points because of silly mistakes that you made with any of your formatting. And so, as you can imagine, I've read a lot of scholarship essays over the years. And so this is a list that I came up with the most common essay mistakes that I see. And so I just want to go through these with you guys real fast. The first, number one, would be not fully answering the question. So a great story gets you nowhere if it doesn't actually answer the prompt. So that's number one. The other thing is make sure to address all aspects of the question. One of the questions, I wrote this down for you guys, one of the questions from this year's application for the Oregon Tech Foundation is, what is your vision for making a positive impact in your future profession, community, or the world? And what steps are you taking to realize that vision? As you can see, there's two parts to that question. So if you spend 450 words answering the first part of that prompt, but you don't address the second half at all, or try to squeeze it in with one sentence at the very end, you're not going to maximize the points that you're going to get from your reader. So make sure that you fully address all aspects of each prompt that you're answering. The next thing would be uncreative writing. Use examples and anecdotes, otherwise you might lose your reader. We kind of already covered that a little bit. The next one would be not telling your story. The reader does not know you, and only you can tell them why you're a wise investment for the scholarship. A lot of scholarships are blind processes. They have no idea who you are, what your qualifications are, why you're worthy of the scholarship. So you have to connect the dots for your reader. If you don't do it, nobody else is going to. So keep that in mind when you're filling out your scholarship application. The next one would be falling in love with your first draft. Give yourself at least 24 hours after your first draft before looking it over again. Let it sit for a little while. Come back to it with fresh eyes, and then you can do that rewriting that you need to do. Once again, not proofreading thoroughly. Even a few typos or grammatical errors are going to be a huge deal when you're up against many other students for a very competitive scholarship. So don't lose out on those points because of silly mistakes that you've made. And then using too many why words. And what's a why word? So we can replace things like very good with excellent. Very nice becomes delightful. Definitely true becomes obvious. It saves you on word count, first of all, if you're really struggling to get in under those 500 word limits. But it also just makes your writing more interesting. Once again, if you're competing with a lot of other students for scholarship money, little things like that can help you rise to the top of the pile of scholarship applications. And then the final one, and this is a new one I just added this year, would be overutilizing AI. It can make your essay sound generic, redundant, and impersonal. And we'll have a little bit more information on this later, but watch out for AI because it doesn't always give you the essay that you're really going to want for your scholarship application. Okay, so we're going to transition from essays to the activities chart. This is another super important part of your application. So readers generally want to see two things. They want to see how you're spending your time and that you have some focus and direction. Quality really counts here. A long list of extracurricular activities won't stand out as much as focusing on something that you care about, being able to state why that activity is important to you. So think resume. Think about that when you're putting together your activities chart. You often have limited space, so be concise and use action verbs and buzzwords like led, managed, served, and focus on the transferable skills. How will these skills translate to the real world? As a citizen, employee, partner, parent, how are these skills helping you not just as a student right now, but how are they going to transfer to the real world and benefit you later? And then you want to also proofread. Readers are not looking for complete sentences because you just don't have space for that on most activities charts, but typos, misspellings, and lack of clarity are going to be a big deal. So make sure that you're proofreading those activities charts as well. So include everything and think outside the box when you're putting together your activities chart. A great way to get started is just to make a big list of all your activities. Are there activities you do each month, every year, every week? Put those all down on a big list and then see if you can find ways to plug those into your activities chart. So you can also note if you are a participant or have specific responsibilities. So most activity charts are going to give you a space to be able to describe what that activity was. So once again, you have to make that connection to it for the reader. You have to explain specifically what that activity meant to you. You want to note if it's pay or volunteer. You want to note if there's hidden elements. So one example of this would be if you attend church every week, but you volunteer in the children's ministry once a month. You could include that on your activities chart. Maybe you go to family dinner every Sunday with your grandparents, but you show up early so you can do outdoor chores for your grandmother. Or maybe you have an elderly neighbor that can't shovel their driveway anymore. That could be community service if you shovel your neighbor's driveway every time it snows. Those are examples of some hidden elements that you may not think about. But I feel like the activities chart is where students probably struggle the most. But just, listing all your activities and finding ways to plug them into that chart really is a great way to get started. And you want to remember that for most scholarships, you must list activities on the chart to receive points, even if you mention them in your essays. So I see this all the time with students who apply for the foundation scholarships. They'll talk about all these awesome activities and their essays that they did, but then they have a blank activities chart or almost nothing on their activities chart. And I can't give them points for that because it's a totally different section that's scored separately. So don't list things only in your essays. Make sure you tell us about it in your activities chart as well. A few extra points from the activities chart can make a huge difference in whether or not you receive a scholarship. When we sit down to award the foundation scholarship, sometimes it's like half a point, a third of a point between one student receiving a scholarship and another not. So don't leave any points on the table by not putting together a really good activities chart. So this is, and I just wanted to show this to you guys briefly. You can find this information on the Oregon Tech Foundation website. You can pull this up and look at it. But this is what we provide to our readers for scoring. So when our readers sit down with your activities chart, this is what they're using to determine what each of your scores are. And once again, like I said, you can go onto our website, you can pull this up and study it in a little bit more detail. But I feel like this is really helpful for students to see what readers are looking for to give you those 4s and 5s in each of those different areas. On to the last section here of the application that I wanted to talk about. So this is recommendation letters. So not all scholarships are going to require a recommendation letter, but there are enough of them that this is something that you're going to want to have in your pocket. Now is a good time to start asking professors, employers, anyone that you want to request a recommendation letter from. Don't wait until a week before the scholarship applications due because they may not be able to help you then. Start asking them now, well in advance, if you need a recommendation letter. And so who should you ask? Instructors, supervisors at work, respected community members. You want to make sure that that reference knows you in some sort of official capacity in order to ask them for a recommendation letter. And there's some things that you can provide to your reference that would be really helpful for them. One thing would be if you're applying for a really specific scholarship and it has really specific criteria, let the reference know that so maybe they can highlight some of those areas for you. If they don't know all of your accomplishments, you can provide a copy of your resume, maybe a list of your accomplishments. So maybe they can find ways to plug that into your recommendation letter and it's going to sound a lot better for you. And if they need to mail it somewhere, a really nice touch is to give them a stamped, already addressed envelope that they can just put in the mail and mail off to that scholarship for you. And you also want to request a personalized recommendation. make sure that they don't spend all their word count on that recommendation letter talking about things that don't directly relate to you. So I see sometimes like professors at Oregon Tech will write a recommendation letter, but they talk mainly about maybe how rigorous their program is or how competitive it is to get into that program, but they don't spend a lot of time talking about the individual student. So make sure that you ask for a personalized recommendation letter that's going to highlight things that you've done, your accomplishments, so that the scholarship committee has that information. So what if you get stuck? Maybe you're working on a scholarship application and you're stuck on one of the essay prompts, or you're stuck putting together the activities chart. What do you do in that situation? So a great way is to draw it out and then play with the combinations. Who makes you who you are as an individual? Maybe you're a child of a veteran, you're a parent, you are an engineering major. There's all different kinds of things that make you who you are as an individual. So if you can find ways to incorporate that into your scholarship application, and that's going to help you find ways to get past that writer's block, because if you're writing about something that you're passionate about, it's going to be a lot easier for you. And your connection with the reader is going to be much stronger if you write about something that you're passionate about already. So draw out those different combinations and see if you can find ways to plug that into your scholarship application. So this next slide here is a little bit behind the scenes. I'm going to share with you how the Oregon Tech Foundation evaluates our applications. And so this is something that happens after you've submitted your application, after our readers have finished scoring. This is us as a selection committee sitting down and deciding who's going to receive scholarships. And you want to remember that every scholarship is obviously different. This is just how we as a foundation score our applications, but every scholarship is going to have something similar to this with how they evaluate your application. And each of our scholarship applications is read by 3 individual readers. So 3 readers from all different walks of life. You could have staff members, faculty members, community members, but 3 people read every one of your scholarship applications. And so the different areas that we're scoring on, the first would be GPA. So anywhere between 0 and 10 points, depending on your individual GPA. So if you had a 3.9 or higher GPA, that's going to get you a perfect 10 score for our scholarships. And this is only included when the individual donor has said they want GPA to be included. So not all of our scholarships are going to include a GPA score, but quite a few of them do. And so that's where that GPA score comes from. We're also going to look at remaining need. So we look at the FAFSA information that you submitted to determine how much unmet need you have. And so we look at your cost of attendance, and then we subtract any grants or scholarships that you're receiving, and then your SAI, your student aid index from the FAFSA, and whatever your remaining need is drives that need score. So anywhere from 0 points, if you don't file FAFSA at all, we can't establish your needs. You're automatically going to get a 0, unfortunately. But if you have $18,000 or more of remaining need, we're going to give you 10 needs. And this is only included once again when the individual scholarship donor has requested that we include need. These other sections here are where our scholarship readers come in. So the activities chart, you can see there's anywhere from 0 to 5 points, depending on that student's individual activities chart. 5 would be nearing superhero status. It's pretty hard to get a 5, but there are 5 potential points. There's also the 2 main essays. So you can see essay 1 is anywhere between 0 and 8 points. We have, and I want to give you guys this insider information here. We've changed how we're scoring our foundation scholarships this year. It used to be that we gave up to 5 points for content and then 5 points for grammar, spelling, formatting. So there was 10 points total. We have changed that now. There's up to 8 points for content, and then readers can deduct points if the formatting is really poor. So we're focusing more on what you're saying and less on the formatting part of it, because there's so many tools available to you guys now, right? There's Grammarly, There's different AI tools that don't generate the actual essay, but they can help you with your grammar. So we're no longer focusing so much on the formatting part of it. We're gonna reward you guys for the best content that you can submit. But once again, our readers can deduct points if they feel like the formatting is really. So, brand new for this process, keep that in mind when you're putting together your scholarship application. And then for individual scholarships, there might be some reference letters or additional short essay questions that you're gonna have to answer, and those would be anywhere between 0 and 4 points. So, gives you a little background information, so you can see how we're really scoring this. All right, so I've been hinting at a little AI talk here, and just one slide. I just briefly want to go over this with you guys because once again, it is such a hot topic in both higher ed and in the scholarship community. So what are appropriate uses of AI assistance tools when it comes to scholarship application? These are some examples of appropriate uses. You could use it to generate ideas, build a framework, help with transitions and endings, and provide feedback on your work. Inappropriate uses of AI assistance tools would be providing AI-generated essay responses that are represented as your own creation, and using AI to misrepresent an applicant's abilities, experiences, or intentions. So basically, the Oregon Tech Foundation will allow AI as a tool for editing or brainstorming, not to generate essay content. It could get your actual application disqualified if you use AI to create your essay. We have revised our scoring rubric to reward essay responses that highlight a student's personal experiences and connect with the reader. Impersonal, generic essays will score lower than those with a strong author's voice. So we know AI is something that students are going to use, obviously, especially since we're a tech school, but we have to be careful how we use it because, especially AI generated essays can come off very impersonal, and the Oregon Tech Foundation reserves the right to put your essays through an AI detector if it is suspicious that it could have been generated by AI. And I've talked to other schools and other scholarship committees that are starting to do this more because they're seeing that it's becoming more of an issue. So I just want you guys to understand what's appropriate, what's inappropriate, how we can use AI to improve our scholarship applications, but not get in trouble for doing it. So. Okay, final 2 slides here. I know this is a lot of information in one evening. Last section here is some advice from fellow students. I know that I can talk about scholarships, but I have approached students over the years who have been very successful in applying for scholarships and asked them what they thought they did well and why they were successful. And these are some of the responses that I received. One said, look locally. I focus less on large national scholarships and only apply to one specific to Oregon Tech, my county, or the state of Oregon. We kind of talked about that already. The next thing is don't rush. I would first say making time to complete the application without rushing and putting quality work into the essays is a big part of why I think I have been successful. Recycle your writing responsibly. It's fair to say that many scholarships will ask variations of the same questions. What are you studying? What do you want to do after you graduate? Why do you think you are a good candidate, etc.? This student kept a folder on their Google Drive that had all the writings and essays from all the scholarships that they've completed. They sorted it by year, and then there's a document for each application's questions and responses. I think this is a great strategy. I'm not telling you to take an essay response and plug it in somewhere that it doesn't make sense. But if you come across an essay prompt that's very similar to maybe something you answered for another scholarship application, and you can take that basic framework and you can tweak it enough to make it work for another scholarship application, why not? Like, why reinvent the wheel when you already have something as a starting point? So start saving those essays that you're writing, and you can update them, you can tweak them, and you can use them again so that you're not having to start from 0 every time you apply for a scholarship. Make your words matter. Word counts can limit you, so make sure every word you choose has a point and packs a punch. Be on the alert for reusing certain words too much. If you notice you're overusing a word, look up synonyms. Essays are the biggest portion of the scholarship application that you have control over, so do an outstanding job. Next, embrace adversity. Understand that adversity helps to shape, refine, and bring out character. It might be embarrassing for students to talk about difficult situations they went through, but showing how you are currently responding positively to hardship today indicates that you will be more prepared to respond to challenges tomorrow. So once again, connecting the dots for your reader, explaining to them, why you're a good fit for this scholarship. Maybe you've faced adversity, but look at where you are now. That's a great way to connect with your reader. And then finally, make yourself stand out. A tip I have is to be personable and genuine. Don't focus on trying to seem like the right candidate for an application, but instead be yourself and answer questions genuinely. So just a few tips from your fellow students. All right, that was a lot of information. Thank you. Do we have questions before we move on to scholarship drawing?
We do.
Okay.